Hello, Joanne. Welcome to the class. Seems that you're the only one that's joined in. I don't see anybody else. I'm just wondering what's going on. We sorted out everything, I guess, the last time about the timings. I hope there was no more confusion. Um, okay, Eromi is here, so I guess they're joining in. Yes, you're right. It's probably a little early, so let's just give them some time. Romy is joining us. Hello, Romy. Welcome to the class.
Oh, hello. Where are the
Great.
class recordings? Are they in that link with the Dropbox, the previous recordings?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I just have to copy and paste that link. I believe that link is from the YouTube, so you should be able to recognize it. It's in
Okay.
the notepad, kind of. It's a TXT file. You can easily open it.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. I never looked at that stuff before, so I was just wondering. Thank you.
Yeah. There's just three of us. Joanne has joined us, but we'd wait. Let's see if few more people can come in. I've got Anthony. Hi, Anthony. Good to see you. Welcome to the classic. We'll just wait a few more minutes. Let's see if more people can join in. There. Hey, John. Welcome to the class. We're just waiting for a few more people to join in. John, you couldn't make it in the last class, I believe, the first one that I gave on Friday last. So this would be your first lecture, right? Okay. So the first class was quite intense, wasn't it? For some of you, it might be complicated, I know, but things are going to ease up moving forward. Today, I'm going to talk about context or intent translation, like how the search engine interprets your words or gives it a meaning, what type of sensitivities it has for translating your intent behind the search queries, and that kind of thing. So we'll try to get to that today. And following this class on the Wednesday, we would be starting with basic search queries. Or in other words, we'll start building up search queries using Boolean operators. Okay. So that's my plan. And then, of course, it continues for another few more classes where we finish up basic and then start with the advanced operators. So that's the agenda. Let me know if you can see my screen and it's clear enough on your side.
We're good.
All
Yes,
right, all
yes.
good. All right. Okay, so we
I,
are all
I
set.
just wanted to say what we talked about last Friday.
Yes.
Some of the terminology it reminds me of SEO type stuff.
Um,
I know it's different, but
yeah.
that's what it
Well,
sounds like.
it's really not geared towards understanding the SEO part. Um, the intent or what was the idea behind using those terms is to familiarize you with some of the ways in which the HTML code, for example, would be read by the search engine. And of course, it's going to read, tags, all kinds of tags. It's going to read the textual content, the keywords, and so on, because it is looking at something which the user is not looking at. In other words, user is looking, what he's seeing is a nicely laid out page with information that is intended to be viewed by the user, whereas the search engine has another agenda also, in addition to reading the text. And so that was discovered in the first lecture. Um, so not really just going under the hood was not intended for SEO purposes, but it has a connection. Everything is connected in that sense. Whenever you get into the HTML side of the code, you are definitely looking at some of the ways in which SEO might be useful, like pulling or extracting that info, which otherwise, is difficult to get to as a user, but you can still open up the source code or formulate certain type of queries to pull information like keywords and the time and date stamps and those that are invisible otherwise. I'm going to start with the lecture now, and I'll run these slides. And okay, so let's start with this with context in search for intent translation. That's the topic today. So whenever we talk about intent translation or giving meaning to the query or making the machine understand the logic or connectivity between words and start to make sense out of it in the linguistic terms, that's when it is using a science of semantics or textual semantics, which is um, um, something that needs to be understood from not only from the perspective of just um, uh, figuring out how your um, search queries will be translated or but also from the point of view of how you will formulate your search queries to enforce a meaning and certain words that you cannot enforce or certain combination of words or search phrases that can have multiple meaning, or in the simplest terms, when two people are asking the same question, they can basically be asking it in two different ways. yet the answer would be the same. So how would the search engine understand or relate to it as being the answer for the two questions that appear to look different, but the intent might be the same or the language used might be different. So that's where the semantics kicks in. Now, textual semantics, we call it textual semantic because it is related to the language itself or or the words or how the words connect together. Uh, Now, to begin with, this example that we are giving or we are going to follow will be coming from natural language recognition or a science of understanding the language and the semantics that is programmed into the algorithms of search engine. So the semantics, by definition, is a branch of linguistics, and it is a logic concerned with the meaning given to set of words in a language. So you can read this. But there are three types of semantics that we will be talking about. There could be further sub branches or more branches of it, but that's not as relevant. But getting a general idea of the types of semantics or the types of ways in which we program the algorithms is broadly divided into three different approaches. One we call formal semantics, which means that it is talking about or it gives logic or gives a sense or reference or gives a relationship between words. We call that formal semantics. Then we have got lexical semantics, which is literally the true meaning of the words and how these words together form a search phrase, and where certain words would have its root words or its derivative words. All that is coming uh, with the lexical semantics. Then we've got conceptual semantics. Uh, Conceptual semantics is a little bit more complicated because it involves a lot of machine learning. So um, what it does is that it gives reason or it gives a logic, but a deeper logic or a deeper sense to the combination of words or your search phrases. It learns from the experiences of how the people have used certain terms to explain something, an idea or logic. So all that is actually remembered and automatically programmed based on the use of those words together. It also involves remembering, thinking experiences that we use as human beings to connect or give sense to the um, or give sense to the intention of what you are looking for, which is again a deeper meaning. So that's conceptual semantics. This is for your understanding. Then there is something called machine learning, which I just mentioned before. This is, and I don't have to explain it again. Machine learning is something that is automatically programmed. Think of it as a collection or collective wisdom that the search engine acquires and automatically makes its connection for it to be used or remembers it as instances that are frequently frequented, and therefore um, becomes a permanent forms a permanent logic of understanding. That's the machine learning part. Okay, it identifies, and these are these examples. Um, it identifies if something is a spam or a duplicate or words or notations, trends and patterns, seasonal patterns, etc. Okay. Now we use machine learning is extensively used in search engines, in predictive searches or in where it says that people also search for, when you put search and terminology, it gives its derivatives, or it gives a similar type of structures of sentences. This is somewhat, we can call it predictive or assistive search, which is automatically given to you as options when you see some drop downs, or you see some specialized boxes that talks about, the similar type of terminologies. Okay, let me just get rid of something here which we don't require for now, not to cause any confusions. So I'm going to run this slide again. So now let's try to understand words matching complications. So the idea or the sense in which some of the words are put together for your search term, word really understanding words relationship, sequence of the words, if it's in English language, from left to right, what comes after the first word and continues with the third and the fourth, if it maintains that sequence, what meaning it would deliver. If one of the words is knocked out, how it changes, or how the search interprets that, and so on. But the important concept that I will emphasize, that we keep in mind all the time, is that no matter how good a search query you build, or you know you can format it the best you can use the best keywords, but the process which it will automatically or autonomously perform is called a stemming process. When you write the words, taking an example of English words, okay, the process is called stemming, which is the first process, meaning that it will switch words. It might just, for example, to understand it even better through the example, think of the word cheaper, for instance. If you use cheaper, it will, if it cannot find something related to cheaper, or somewhere where you have used the word cheaper in a long search um, term or a long search phrase, um, it would then try to find something that we call root word, or default to root words, which is cheap. Cheaper is derived from cheap. Cheap is the root word. Cheapen is another form of it, or another type of stemming. Cheaper, cheap, cheapen, cheapest. All of those are derived from the root word cheap. So this process is called stemming, and it will automatically assume or replace the word if the relative words that are before or after this specific word are without changing, or without giving a different meaning to the sentence. It will try to make that relationship, and might replace the word with another one, but it will um, remain to be coming as a derivative of a root word. This is stemming process. Then there is another process called lemmatization, and it is also happening simultaneously. Um, the lemmatization means that it will replace the word, but it will not, it will probably bring in the synonym for the original word, but without changing the meaning of it, or without making any alteration to the intent of what it should or what it originally means. For example, wake can be replaced by wake up, or vigil, or funeral. Okay, so all these things would allow for the search to replace the word. Now, this is besides the stemming. Lemmatization is different from stemming. Lemmatization switches the words, replaces them without changing the meaning. Stemming defaults to the root words, and from the root word, it starts to make replacement of its derivatives. This would be a question in the exam. It's a pet question. We get to see it quite often. The new concept, which is now added to the algorithms of the search engine, is ontology. And ontology came in after, there was a lot of traction with the social media, and so ontology evolved. Ontology means creating relationship between objects or individuals, and it collects the data, it collects the relationship from the big data or the data that is pretty much freely available on the social media platforms. It starts to collect that info and starts to create uh, the pattern of how one uh, type of info, I'll just call it information for now, but let's say there's certain keywords or certain searches where you would be creating, or the search would be creating relationship with others or third party. For instance, now you take an example here, Bart Simpson's, because people are searching for, let's say, Bart when they do Bart Simpson, they're looking for, the siblings has a relationship with the dog named whatever. Uh, so I don't know the name son, he's a son or a daughter, or the name of a son or name of a daughter, because it is already collected information and it is quite popular search. So that relationship remains to be available for the user to look for someone um, that is already known to have a relationship with this individual. So that is called ontology. And the three process in algorithms now, one of them is ontology, stemming and lemmatization. And then we will talk about some of the ways in which stemming and ontology works. I'm just going to, so it makes a relationship between friends and family, business, work, colleagues, and so on. Okay. An example of semantics and lemmatization is shown in this search. Let's suppose we are searching for John Turner, carpenter, wood shop, brochure. These are the search terms. Never mind in title colon, you're not taught this part yet and don't have to worry about it for now. Just focus on the key terms. So when you are doing a search with these words, you will see in the search results that in here, for example, the word brochure is replaced by catalog. Wood shop is replaced by woodworking. Again, for the brochure, they have used the word pamphlet. For carpenter's wood shop, they have used carpenter's shop. So all that has been pulled here, you would see that it has applied stemming and lemmatization, which is often the case when you're doing your search and you find the results that does not contain exactly the same term. But the highlighted portion or the highlighted words in the description would be an indicator that it has performed or it has tried its best and came up with something similar and not exactly the same, without compromising the meaning of it. One of the ambiguities in this kind of search, for example, here where it says James Wood. So Wood is a name and first name James attached to the word wood, where it has not been able to successfully interpret it as carpenter shop or woodworking shop. So instead, the word wood is part of the name, and that's returned an incorrect result, but you can't blame the search engine for this. Similarly, by the way, just so you know, the search itself has a way of building, in easier terms, let's call them tables of information, which typically is relating to or um, s- typically used often as markers for a specific purpose. For example, if it is a zip code and you put in as a number 32835, the search would think of it as a zip code by default because it has built a table of those zip codes, especially if you're doing your searches from USA or North America rather. It'll start to interpret those numbers as zip codes because that's got a precedence and based on the way those numbers are set. So if there are five numbers and they are reflective of a zip code, then it will interpret it as a zip code. Similarly, phone codes 407 321, it knows that it's the phone area codes, and it has built-in directory which will already know without you putting the word phone there. If you just do a search with 407, you will see that it is interpreting it as a phone number. And similarly, things like the name diminutives. So if my query says Beth Mary Jones, it automatically means that you are looking for Mary Elizabeth Wheat or Mary Elizabeth Jones. Why? Because Beth is a short form, it's not a full Christian name. So it will know and it will have an understanding that it means Elizabeth. Similarly, Dave is for David. It would know that. So when you are putting your queries, as I've suggested here, you would see that the results would look somewhat like this. So right now, we are doing the theoretical part, which means that we are not doing hands-on queries. But don't be disappointed because that's going to come later. Perhaps the first lecture I will give on the basic search, I will start with examples, and later on there will be a lot more queries. In fact, there will be mostly search queries we'll be working with. That means we'll actually put it in a browser. So anyway, let's get our fundamentals really solid, and then we will do the queries themselves.
Real quickly,
Variations of cement. Yes, go ahead.
yes, I have a
Mm.
question. So from what I read, it sounds like it's possible for people that live in different countries
Yes.
using the same exact keywords, they can actually
Mhm.
pull up really different results.
For sure, that's the dilemma. We call that internet filter bubble, which means that we are given the information based on certain factors or certain situations, one of which is the location. The thing about doing online research is that we have to get unbiased results. We want to make sure that we are not the search engine is not pushing information based on its own uh, way of defining what to give you. Rather, you lose control of what is given to you. So that is not good for research, and we have to try our best after getting enough understanding on how to maneuver it to deliver exactly what you require, meaning that you want to make it, you want to neutralize its ability to give an implied meaning to your actual or expressed search query. So if we know how to make certain words or certain phrases stick together as emphasized, or something for which you're not giving any option to the search engine, that would be the idea behind using the operators, is how to make it tight enough that the search will not have the option or not give it enough room to make its own decision for you, or to thrust any kind of return results based on its own implied logic. That's the game. So eventually we will come to that when we have got a better understanding of using proximity search operators and advanced search operators, and how to make it deliver the same results. However, there is always going to be a bit of a bias, because we can only control so much. Meaning that even if we have the same browser, same set of queries, same keywords, uh, everything the same, and get our search pages to bring in, let's say, 10 results that are coming from, USA, and the same search query is done in Middle East somewhere, they will be getting slightly different results. So sometimes we use that to our advantage when we go outside, or we want to break that barrier and be able to search, let's say, in Eastern Europe. We can do it by design or by our approach, having full understanding that these are the type of results we are getting, or we are short-handed in getting the kind of results that we can otherwise fetch from Eastern Europe. Then I would have a different strategy. One of the strategies is to use a different type of browser. A browser, when I say browser, I really mean the search engine. Like in the Eastern European side, Yandex, for example, is their main search engine. It's not Google. So that's one thing I would change. The other is I could use VPNs, right? And the third thing is that you can neutralize through your browser, talking about Chrome here, neutralize it enough that you make it ready to deliver results which are not biased, or which are not following your history, or is not imposing anything that otherwise is used to influence your search results. So you have to make some changes in the privacy policies, in the language that you're using. Everything has an impact. Even if I type my search query in a, um, I can type one search query, let's say in English language, okay? And I can write another one, just translating it into Ukrainian language, and I put exactly the same wordings, but in a different language, I'll get different results. So there are a lot of influencers that impact your search results, okay? And we can reveal these, or we can call them barriers, that we will start to unfold one by one, because it's a lot of information, first of all. Second of all, we need to get to a certain delta, certain level, before we can start discussing these areas. So just to answer your question, Anthony, you started with a very innocent small question, but it has a lot of layers to it. Okay, so and we'll just call those strategies like search strategies. We will get to them very soon. Okay, we've got another student joining in, so let's get her in as well. Variations of semantically similar conversational sentences. This is just giving you an idea. Again, it's just an overkill in my way of how I would like to go faster. This is just a repeat of the same. It's just telling you this certain sentences, certain ways in which wordings are phrased that might give different results, or it may have a same meaning, or the intent could be the same, but because of the way they're written, you will get different search results. So that's all it is talking about. And I'm sure you understand that. And anyway, this is for you to look at and just have a quick glance at it. And let's get to the main. Um, okay. Okay, I forgot this one. Now, there was a dilemma, a problem that the search engine is trying to solve. You know how we write our queries with a question ending with a question mark as if we are asking a question. Search engine would not entertain the question mark. It wouldn't think of it as something to worry about or for it to react to. And I'm not talking too long ago, let's say about maybe a few years ago. Okay. Because there was a lot of complication with people asking questions in 10 different ways and expecting the same results to come back to them. So this was a dilemma. This was a problem that they couldn't solve before, but they understood that people like to put the queries like a question so that they can get an answer. That's human, right? You want to ask something. Instead of writing it as a statement or a set of words, you would want to know something. So it became very important, and they started to make some changes in the algorithms. So what they did, again, they used machine learning, artificial intelligence, whatever you call it. By the way, artificial intelligence has been around for a very long time. It's just that I see some of the technologies become seasonal, and it looks like everything is in a queue. Some years, one idea becomes more popular. There used to be a big data thing going on that became very popular. Now it died down. Now they're talking about AI, but it's been around for a long time. Anyway, coming back to this, the solution to the problem. Let me see if my recording is on or not. Otherwise, I'll be in trouble. Okay, it is on. Thank God for that. Okay. So they started looking at the answers to those questions. When a lot of questions were pointing to the answers that typically was delivered with reference to those similar questions, they started to understand, or they did reverse understanding of relating answers to the questions. So they work backwards. So take an example. Question like, how are you? How old are you? These are two different questions. So obviously they're called what we say semantically different. But in question 2 and 3, if it is asked, how old are you versus what is your age? And if the answer is the same, then they're called semantically similar, meaning that the search would know what to deliver back as an answer to different ways in which the same question is asked. Okay, so that's being built in. In fact, uh, that has successfully, been able to deliver the ideas in a better way. And I'm sure you must have seen it, where in the search results a box appears, which is like what do you call it? Harmonium kind of opening. There is one question, you click on it, and it has a drop down arrow. More questions or more related questions keep opening up. So it becomes a thread of questions. That started to deliver. Now it has improved quite a bit. And you would see the similar ideas are driven from questions. They become slowly more and more granular, more detailed. So, just for your understanding, that the question marks or the query or anything that you ask, even if you don't ask, but you have used the words like what, where, when, things like that, it's just going to bring that box to you as a part of your search results, just because it is beginning to understand the questions. But it doesn't mean that the question mark um, is recognized. It is not recognized as a question unless the wordings are supporting it or making it behave like a question. Um, If you're just going to put a question mark and put something as a statement which is not really a true question, then a question mark is dropped. It wouldn't be giving you the same results. Okay. Um, just it's not theoretical, it's actually happening this way. Textual database, MLI, we have learned what it is. Now I'm going to start context and intent. And before I do that, I would like to, take a break. Let's take about 10-15 minutes now, because this will take long and I will have to continue just to maintain the flow of information. So let's take about 10-15 minutes. Okay, I'll see you in a little bit. All right. Now, let's see what intent and context is all about. Um, let's start with these two words for the search. We've used market and research. Now, just using the two words alone is not quite giving a meaning to the reference in which you're using these words. And so there is something missing here. And the search would want to know if you're looking for a definition, you're looking for a job, or you want to hire someone in market research. It's just incomplete, or it is lacking the context. So, what is the context? Unless we give it a proper context, it would not be able to interpret the intent. And so to fill it in with these words like jobs in the red fonts and the location Los Angeles, we are adding the context or making our intent powerful enough that the search wouldn't find it difficult um, to bring you the correct results. So after we have done that and we run the query, we are going to see something like this that is coming in the drop down. Okay. Here you can do your corrections or you can look at the suggestive wordings. And by the way, when you see this drop down with these ways in which the same thing is phrased, um, in the first few of these returned or drop down, you will find the wordings are coming from your recent history. Or if you have done the search using similar words, it's going to start to show them until it exhausts that, and then it starts to give its own way of how others have been searching something similar. So this is quite helpful, and I don't ignore it, and you should also look at it carefully. But anyway, after we submit the query, the return results that are shown here are brought in the sequence where the first snippet is most popular or is most relevant or is considered to have a higher ranking than others that follow it. And this ranking is actually got influencers, which makes it appear in the sequence in which it is shown. One of the factors or some of the factors that gives relevance or give it higher weightage or a higher priority of how it is set in your results will depend on. Now, these are few of the factors I'm discussing. There are known to be more than 200 signals which are used in the ranking algorithms. But four of them are more important. One of them is the authority of the page, meaning that if it has got the material that is coming from sites or domains like educational institution, organizations, prestigious kind of websites which are already well known, it will have a higher authority. And if the content is fresh, meaning that it is coming from a site which keeps updating the content, it is not static or stagnant, the freshness matters. Originality, meaning that it is not plagiarized, it is not linked from some other website, but rather is appearing as an original work. So originality, then popularity of it, like how many of the people keep coming to the same page, which contain these wordings like market research jobs and so on. So the popularity of those pages, collectively, they would have an impact on the ranking or the sequence in which it is going to be discovered. This is not relevant. Now, in the case of when you are putting the search terms in your search box and assuming that these are the two individuals, one of them has put in Empire State Building height versus another person who is also looking for the height of Empire States, but he has phrased these or placed these wordings in a different way, like how high is the Empire State? These are two same questions or similar ideas, except that where you see in blue color, this is the object of the search. This part we can call object. Search knows that this is the object, and then it looks at the reference. Reference to what? Object with reference to height in this yellow highlighted portion. Similarly, over here, it is going to drop the words how is the as stop words, and it is going to look at Empire State as an object and look at the reference in what reference you are querying this. So you're looking for the height of Empire State Building. So search will start interpreting it first of all in a more structured way of how it is programmed, like it will separate object and references. That's another idea that you will have to understand. Then we've got the portion where the context um, is of importance, meaning that there are two type of context. Context is the added words or the words that give it a better meaning or it improves the meaning of the search. So the context can be of two types, and this is how the search will look at it. There would be one type which is explicit. Obviously, explicit means that you are actually typing it in the search box, you know what you require, and you know the wordings to use. So that is explicit context. But then there is an implicit context, which means that it is an imposed context, assumed context, or considered to be more relevant, that is added by the search engine on its own, or it's an idea that is added or imposed by the search engine as the implicit context. You can control explicit context, but the implicit context is difficult to control unless you make a very tight query with a lot of operators that are nudging it or making it more focused search. It's very hard to overcome the implicity or implicit context given to a search. Now, what is implicit context? That is what we'll discover. So unless we discover the implicit context, we will not be able to give a logical sense to why certain results are coming or why unreasonable or inaccurate results are coming. So you would have these, uh, you will have this sense of knowing what may have caused it. More than likely, the culprit would be the implicit context. So understanding what could be the implicit context would also help you to overcome these implicities in your search results. Um, in terms of we are just we are going to explore a few more search terms before we get to implicit signals. Let's look at the explicit signals, the ones that we are actually writing in the search box. So primarily they are divided into two type of context. One is primary context, which means it is the object. Secondary context is supporting the primary context, meaning that it is the referential context or it is a reference to the primary context. Okay, so we basically, when we are um, giving out the assigned searches to our colleagues or our subordinates or people who are working in a group, we need to give them the key terms, objective of the search, and have to explain to them what part of it is primary context, meaning that you don't want the primary context to be changed, and what could be the secondary context. So you can give a certain other contextual terms, but they are not as stringent as a policy or as the part of your instructions to stick to them as a compulsory requirement. So they become sort of secondary, and the secondary context group has further divisions. We need to understand it, like I said, when we are delegating search to others, and even for yourself, you want to be doing it in a very controlled way, because there is a tendency, and it is actually something that we all experience on regular basis, that whenever we are doing searches, we sometimes lose um, the track of time, and a lot of times we are distracted by going to some other link where we find something interesting to us personally. And so we deviate from our objective. But to stay focused, stay objective, and to save that time, because time is money. Whenever you are doing online research, your time is built on hourly basis, and therefore it is important that you are really focused and you have everything planned. One of the ways in which you do planning is identify primary and secondary context. Let's move forward. Okay, this has come up. Now if we want to make things even more detailed, we can look at this one, this chart. When we have less number of words, or there is not enough context, or your search phrase is not as detailed or as long enough, that it delivers the idea for something to be found, you would be looking at something called broad search, which means that you intentionally are looking for ideas rather than going to a certain content, which means less number of words, less context means broad search. Broad means that you will get far more results compared to more focused or filtered search. So when you have less number of words, a broad search is in action. We call it short tail. And when you put a lot many words and make it more detailed as a search phrase, you are making it a long tail. If it is a long tail, then it is focused or filtered search. Um, Sometimes it is by design, sometimes you make a selection whether or not to go for a broad search, or short tail, or a long tail. Okay, these are just terminologies. Now, if we want to interpret that, we will look at the short tail example. Let's say that we have three words: internet research. Never mind the vertical bar, it is meaningless. It's just these three words or three terms we are putting in search. Now, when we are doing that, we are actually supposed to, and this is the simplest way of explaining things. It's because it's an illustration, but it becomes more complicated when you start to impose this type of instructions or delegate these instructions. So keep that in mind. For now, let's say we have only three words: internet research certification. Now, one of the words that you have to identify is, or you can call it a primary context, or you can even call it a word that is not replaceable. That means there is no way that you're going to allow for the word, let's say the word internet, to be changed. Because the moment you're going to get rid of internet, the word research and certification will totally change the meaning of search. In other words, without using the word internet, your search query will not bring the results. So the word internet is what we call the head word. Okay. And then the second word, research, can be replaced by search, for example. I think that could also work. So this becomes a modifier, meaning that you would allow yourself or others to change this word, but without changing the meaning of it. So basically, you don't get rid of this word. I mean, not say rid of it. Let's say you don't do away with the research, but rather you uh, have another word to replace it. So it becomes a modifier. And then in the green font, you could see the word certification. Certification can be replaced by training, or it can get another additional word next to it, which means that it is flexible enough to allow for the user to either add word to it or change it or add additional words. So the portion that comes after the modifier, we call the tail. Tail is most flexible, and it is by design that you want to make it available as a context which can be played with, added to, or you can create as many tail words if you want. If you create a lot of tail words, it becomes long tail. Okay. We have to do this in order to control our searches even better. Okay. Um, and then sometimes your search results require more of a primary context to be imposed with multiple words. For example, if we make the modifier attached with the word internet, we can make these two appear as if they are the head words. That means do not change them, do not do anything with it. But when we do this, we are basically promoting the tail word on the top to become a modifier. So you can assume that in the long tail, you can actually start to add more and more tail words, but with a more controlled way of doing it, you're going to keep the word certification intact, except that you have now promoted it to a modifier. And what comes after as an additional context, you have added the word course, and you can call it a tail word. So whenever we mm, do our online searches, we have a format which includes these strategies that are a set of instructions which which we use very carefully, or which we formulate even by spending a lot of time in figuring out what could be head, modifiers, or tail. We might spend a little spend more time to get that collected or get that qualified as the wordings that we would later on then start to dissect them into head, modifier, and tail. So once we have done that homework, then it becomes easier for us to delegate that search. And so we also keep improving on it, or we keep changing it. It just depends on what results were brought back to us, whether they were satisfactory or not. And like I mentioned, primary context head words literally translate into primary context. So secondary context. Okay. Now is the time to start looking at the implicit signals. So far we did explicit, which we defined. Now we're looking at what the search engine is going to do uh, with our search phrases. Okay, implicit signals examples are shown here. We are going to open these up even more in the next slides. There is a illustration and a chart which is more expressive. But anyway, these are itemized, or these are shown here with the in a sequence. Location of the user, that will impact the search results no matter however way you write your search query. Um, the location, on what location, what type of changes the location brings is that it brings results that are more localized, or something which is within your neighborhood, to within your county, state, wherever, whatever. It is just going to deliver something similar, and it's going to also understand the language, and things of that sort, based on that location or geographic location. Search histories, there are two types of histories, long term and short term. What becomes long and short would depend on the type of information it has collected. Certain type of behavioral info, it is considered recent, or where the session is still in progress and you have not signed up. Anything that is collected during that use of the browsers is considered short term. And so long term has a way of capturing certain type of behaviors which are looked at from the meta level, or from a level, or from or used in the sense that it gets collected for it to be interpreted or become part of the search engine machine intelligence, machine learning requirements. Whereas the short term would impact your current searches as you are browsing. Mobile device use, okay. These information are collected for different reasons. One of the reasons is that they sell this data to the phone companies. The contact information associated with users, when you are registering, you have actually opened up an account to log into your browser. It collects your personal information, and you can relate to that. Then you've got even your social media connections, because anytime, remember, when you are doing or you're using the internet, you are in the browser environment. Without browser, you cannot connect to the internet. So the browser has the premium advantage of understanding, knowing behavior and action and visitation of or your preferences, as you use that browser. So all that information is collected. And why we are looking at implicit signals is because when this information is collected, it is for a reason, and it will impact, or it will bring you results that are biased, because it is imposed, or it is considered or assumed to be giving a better user experience, as they say it. Okay. In effect, it is collecting this type of information for a lot many reasons that you can imagine. Then we have got calendar info, the utilities you use, something that are freebies, which are assisting you or making your user experience better, uh, with putting calendars, your Gmail accounts, and everything in that browser. It is those usages of those applications. I'd call them applications, even though they're connected onto the same browser. But those applications are doing their own collection of information. So there is a subset of the main info, which is not only just the use of calendar, but how you have used it. And so it continues. There's purchase histories, favorites. Even if you had gone to, say, an e-commerce website, and you've put something in the cart there, and after that you decided not to complete the transaction, or you broke out of that link, and while you're still browsing, it would remember where you left or the product, or where you were not able to complete that transaction. It will bring that e-commerce site back to you, either as a sponsored ad or as a preferential return e-commerce or product related search results. So everything has an impact, and we have been studying this behavior for a while. So we know so many of the deeper ways in which it becomes utilized or it impacts your implicit results. But in the general sense, I'm giving you an idea of what are those type of information sets that it collects while you're browsing. So bookmarks, even bookmarks, favorites, okay? So anyway, this is not, this is just to give you a general idea of what could be some of the implicit signals. Now, let's see in this example, we have two boxed items, not really boxed, but let's say two headings. One say explicit, the other says implicit. And under this explicit area, you would see two columns or two boxes. Similarly, in implicit context, there is just one box. Now I'll explain to you how this example would help. Uh, in terms of explicit context, we can divide it. It's more like summarizing what we have learned so far. So we've got a primary context. For example, there is a single, starting from a single word, Java. Java is not a search. Java is, let's say, just one word. One word is never qualified for doing a proper search. So Java could mean three things. Either it could be a Java software, could be a Java coffee, Java island in Indonesia. So all these three words are considered primary context because this is the start. This is where you would make a combination and you would give a context by adding either software, coffee, or island to the word Java. In the sense of how it would proceed further to give it a context, you will add or you will be able to say make Java software more explicit and give a context like either it could be a training program or it could be a program as a single word. Similarly, if it is Java coffee, Tim Hortons coffee bar, coffee beans, etc. So you have these contexts that you can add to the primary context. And this is what you're doing physically by entering it into the box. And so far, you have not executed the query assuming. So after you execute it, you will see the returned results would have information which you would not have actually particularly looked for, yet it becomes part of your results or it impacts your search results. What are those factors? These are stated in as implicit context or intent semantics, we can also call it. In this box, you could see what I'm talking about. So if it is software, Java software and training, then automatically it will return results based on location, which means it is looking for training institutions locally. You would probably looking for a pricing for these training programs. You would probably also look for reputation or rating of this institute or let's say wherever the training is provided. Similarly, if it is Java software program, it could again be location, price, and reputation. All these three factors are automatically are going to impact the search results. And this is more to do with what we call commercial queries or something that will also bring a lot of sponsored advertisements from these institutions. Similarly, Java Coffee will do the same action, especially with Java Coffee. You would see that the location, besides location, the store hours will open up. Some other information about discounts or coupons would also open up. So that becomes more like a commercial query. Search knows in the broader perspective that you're looking for something that has a commercial value or that is that would actually push the advertisements um, onto those return pages. That effect or that impact or that sort of return results are based on implicit context that is assumed and asserted by the search engine. So in other words, you could say that a search would have a bias of its own that is pre-programmed, or it is not controlled by you even if you write explicit search queries. Implicit factors generally, apart from the list that we looked at, which is more on the internal side and the search engine side, these are generic factors which are stated here as language, word semantic, like how you phrased it, cultural barriers, sometimes those certain wordings, certain type of information more popular than others, and so on, censorships, geopolitical situation, privacy. This is just a list. Okay, we don't have to go through each one of them to get a more detailed view on what it means. Generally, just reading it, you can understand what could be the generic factors. I want to I just remembered in the book, we have a very good chapter on implicit impacts based on some of what we have discussed, and a lot more that is in there. So, might as well just show you if I can easily open it. Um, it's right here on. Just keeps jumping. This is page 240. If you look at page 239 and page 240 of the training guide, it is going to talk about the impact of changing, let's say, certain phrases into a different language, and you will get different results. Similarly, if you're doing search in two different geographically different areas, like shown here in page 243, you would also get a lot of answers and perhaps get more details on what I'm explaining to you. See, idea of running these slides is that we stay on track while we are, uh, you know, uh, going through the chapters, but at the same time to reveal to you the concepts, as well as make sure that we are not ignoring something which might be conceptually important for exams, or for um, for your understanding of something which you can read about in more details, but it will just build that interest for you. So the book itself is very elaborate, and it has a lot of information. Um, and I remember all these things from the book is because I've actually written the book, but the thing is that normally we are not supposed to be jumping from the slides onto the book and back and forth. Luckily, I know where some of the stuff is, so I can quickly get there. But it is for you to discover, and for you to at least read through the table of content to get an idea of where some of the more detailed information on certain concepts that we discuss in the class, where that can be found. And because it is an ebook, it is very easy to look for or get to those chapters quickly. All you have to do is do Control F and put the term here, and it will, start to give you where these terms are used, and a shortcut to get to, those pages. All right. So that was outside of these slides that we are discussing. Now, remember that whenever we are putting search terms in the search box, we cannot be sure of what we are going to get. So obviously, we have to look at the search results to see how accurate those are. So just one single query usually does not serve the purpose. We have to keep monitoring the results and keep improving on how we phrase certain things, or what type of wordings we have to use, or what context we need to add to get to a more filtered results. So in other words, no single search query is a solution. And therefore, it is a process wherein you have to keep improving or keep refining your search terms, or rather your search queries. I keep forgetting, I keep using the word terms, but there is a lot more to it. When you structure the search query, you will see placement of the words is important. Um, Certain ways of how you're going to use the minus sign or filter out irrelevant from what keeps appearing, not required kind of info, how to get rid of that. And then, of course, you have to use search operator. So there's a whole bunch of things. So search query itself is one long stem of information that needs to be improved every time you look at the search results. This chart is very simple, basically just giving you a general idea of how you can keep um, going from one search query to another to more improved queries and so on. Um, it's a simple example, but you could see that if there was a word jaguar we are using, the search engine wouldn't know if it's a cat or a car. So, so the first thing is that you want to make sure you correct that. Instead of cat, you are using car, for example. In the second instance, it is got results coming that shows the word automobile instead of the word car. So you have to make a selection to see if the word automobile is bringing better results or it is more relevant or not. It just depends on how you look look at the snippets that are written. So you're going to make a choice. If you're going to use the word car, then what is missing is, let's say, local showroom. So you're going to use the word local. And the results will teach you. It will tell you how to improve on it until you get to F, which is the last segment. And it contains a lot more of the context that you have added after learning through B, C, D, and E, that there was a context that brought you a better result, and you've added these wordings to it, even though now it has become kind of a long tail or more focused results, and therefore you will get less number of results written back. So nothing spectacular about this slide, except that it is telling you to, watch for the results and keep improving on your query where you started with, and how you end will depend on your observation of the results. Certain words that are contextually given are higher weightage or are considered to have a value for the search engine to understand it as a singular or maybe a few words that gives a more profound and a deeper meaning without you having to write long search queries. Generally, it's not a good idea to write very long queries with a long sort set of keywords in it. It just becomes lethargic. There is a more chance of error, and it is not as important because sometimes you can convey the meaning for the search in a small number of words, and that will depend on your experience and the how effective you are with your search with building your search queries. Some of the words, for example, from dash to, by the way, dash and to is considered as a single term, search term. I'm not going to call it a word, I'm going to call it a single term without leaving any gaps in between the word to and from. If you're not going to put the dash, it may not interpret it as, or have the same meaning. So from to could be one word you could use, date dash range, you can use social media, words proximity. you can use words proximity, even though has an operator of its own, but the search has the way of interpreting it in its own language. Book title, author, idiom, all these are sort of power words, you can say, that you may want to consider when you're putting your queries together. Area code, map, local, postal code. These are just referential. They are not even defined in the books, or it's not mentioned in the book, but we made a slide out of it. So this would be a reference, but never going to come in the exam. Okay. But so you know what power words are. Okay. And why we discussed it is because they are contextual in nature. Implicit. Okay. Good. We have time. Finish this. Any questions so far? Anything I can help you with, or any ambiguities? Anthony, you're thinking of a
No,
question?
no, I'm understanding. I read a lot of this before the class.
Hmm. So I should be asking questions, right? I
Yeah.
believe Anthony is most well prepared, and therefore he is going to be the one answering the questions. All right.
Yeah, sure.
All right. Okay, continuing. Internet browser history. Let's look at the chart. I start with the chart. Uh, okay. This chart is basically the way it is designed is that it's showing you the different layers which keeps moving down, uh, telling you what is the information sets, we call it, how these information sets aggregates, gets collected, becomes part of the predictiveness of the search to deliver a better user experience, and then in the end how it impacts the query results. So starting from the top layer, we have actually the user information data collection is explained. We are going to break them into three boxes or three different units of information. One we call internet browser data collection. Okay. Now, in the browser data collection, meaning that it is going to look for the short term and the long term search information. Okay. Short term, I think I explained it to you. It depends on the session. If the session is continuing, it is got, or even if it is a very frequently used browser, you could say that off and on, log in, log out, but the past few days, or you know, let's say not more than 3 to 4 days ago, whenever you were browsing during that period, that information is short term. Long term information is, a kind of a permanent information, or the meta level of information on things like the usage of Gmail account, how frequently you use calendar or the utilities. Some of the long term could be, your favorite store to buy certain things, like Amazon keeps coming up whenever you type books. If you're shopping from Staples or somewhere else, things of that nature, they become like a permanent information, or not permanent, let's call it long term. Permanent is your data that is collected at the time of registering for the browser when you're signing into the browser. So, uh, internet browser data collection are information like the time, date, stamp of browsing, like what time of the day you browse a lot, less, or it's just idle. Um, Language that you use, history, you can read through it. I don't want to read it. It's like, it's like just reading the same thing that you're looking at. So any of these that you want to know what type of information is collected under these headings, you can ask me. These are all listed here, and these are part of internet browsing data collection. Okay, then we have profile and personal information of users. You might be interested in knowing what information is actually used, which you thought you willingly gave away, but you thought it was secure enough that it cannot be reused. But look at how it is available for the search engine to try to make sense or to try to relate it or impact your results. Username, photo, birthday, gender, blah, blah, even marriage and parental status. Uh, all of this is actually part of your profile. Then communication data, short term and long term. It is collected in both ways. The sent and received contents of email, chat history, ISP, Wi-Fi, mobile devices you use with your computer, GPS information, and proximity to a cell tower. Even this information, some of it is collected by law or because it is a requirement of the law. Some of it is actually given voluntarily, or it is the cost you pay for using their platform and so on. Don't worry about what is here. Just look at what is highlighted. So this area, now after this set of information that plays a role in intent translations, the next role is intent related information, like personalization of a browser if you've done that, localization of it, meaning that you have chosen a language or area, marketing if you prefer to look at the sponsored ads or not, trends, information like what is it that you shop for during summer or during winter, or if it is not, if it is non-commercial, then what type of searches you do. So the it's certain seasonal searches that you do certain time of the year, those kind of information, advertisement you are interested in or you're clicked on it. So that is the second layer of information. The third layer is that when it has the first layer and the second layer of information already collected and is become triggers uh, for making the impact on your results. The triggers would push the information to a next layer, which is the third layer now, which is what is highlighted. It is going to create or do its analysis, like it will do suggestions, it will give you suggested results, it will give you related searches. You're all familiar with it. It's part of your SERPs. Suggestions you could see related searches, you can see local area searches, autofill forms. People also ask autocomplete intention. It's all customized. While you're thinking that the somebody else is getting the same sort of suggestions, same related, it's not so. You will find normally people don't sit together and compare each other's results. So this is another reason why you don't see it. But the fact is that compare it with what gets returned with the same query with two people searching, and given that both of the browser histories are different, you will see that these areas will bring different you know will give different suggestions or even autofill forms and things of that sort, predictive while you're writing it in the box, you could see the drop downs and all that. All those results will be different. Okay. So that's the third layer. And the fourth layer, obviously, is the impact of how it will give you the results. Now, in this, effect on search results will depend on location revealed. Location will have in legal implications, like if it is certain type of information that is legal to be used, other types, like in Saudi Arabia, everything is so much censored that certain words that you type, you won't get the results. Or if you use a certain search terms, you will even get caught because they are very strict about or very sensitive about certain wordings you use. Content settings that you have done in your browser will be affected. Filter bubble is what I was mentioning to Anthony. Effect of filter bubble would be threefold: location history that will impact the results, um, language, and automated uses. For example, let's suppose I'm sitting in Turkey and I've been, my address and my all my browsing from before, all that history is coming from Ontario in Canada. I'm carrying that uh, information in my browser even when I've physically brought my computer in Turkey. It still carries that information and it still impacts the search results until I forcefully change it, or the part of the impact that is related to the location also affects the results, but my basic information or long-term or permanent information about my phone numbers, anything that I did at the time of registering will remain intact. Okay, so this is where the impact or the effect will start taking place. So we know that these are the different layers, or these are the different factors, or some of the impactful implied um, uh, I guess influencers that would give different search results. The interesting part I want you to be cautious about, and I say cautious is because I'm very careful myself when I'm writing a query. At the time when I'm putting something in the search box, at the same moment, the intelligence that is built inside of the browser is conveying a certain message to the other side, which is the search engine side, preparing the search engine to get ready to deliver the results based on the nature of the query, which is still being typed. I haven't even completely typed it, or right after I type it, it sends a message to the search engine. But the action of conveying the information starts from the browser, but at the same time, the delivery of the results that is coming from the search engine would work uh, um, in coordination with the signals received from the browser. So they are coordinating while I'm busy writing the search query. So here is what happens. Whenever and it all depends on how I'm wording it or how I'm phrasing certain uh, words. So if I wrote, I want to, if I know I want to go to a certain domain or a certain page, or I know exactly the place where I want to be navigated to, this is called navigational query. So as soon as I'm writing or finish up writing, the message is sent to the search engine, preparing it to deliver certain type of results, okay, which may be different from the others that I'm going to tell you about. So this is called navigational query. Another type of query where I am trying to look for a product or services, and I'm typing, let's say, Toshiba laptop model so and so, or a book I want to buy, something that is related to or giving an indication that just by reading or phrasing it, it is interpreting as actionable transactional query, meaning that so you are getting either ready to look for the product, compare the product, or you are planning to purchase the product. So, depending on while you're writing it, it is interpreting it and signaling the search engine, be ready that Mr. Manzoor is, sending out a message for finding goods and services. So it could be what we call transactional query. This is how it is actually named. It's called transactional query. Transactional query can be commercial. That means you want to compare something, you're looking for reviews, you are still exploring. Or there could be a purchase especially if you have something in the cart somewhere, it would know that you're getting ready to purchase. It's going to equate or match that product with where you had left before from the short-term memory it has collected on which where you wanted to go. So, it would be transactional, commercial, or purchase related query. Then there is an informational query, which means you are exploring an idea, something, information set that you want to collect, look for, or an idea that you want to expand on by looking at, different options. You're going to do broad search. You would probably be doing informational. So the search knows that you are just by reading how you have written or how you have phrased something, it would know if it is an informational query. And also, it is going to compare the short term searches to see in the past if you have used the same wordings and you have performed the same behavior of exploring something, where you are not buying something, but you are looking for information. So it knows it's informational. And based on the hashed out objective of these queries, your search results will deliver the snippets, the advertisements, the layout of information, different types of snippets that exist, which you will also discover by design, that could relate to either buying something or looking for information. And so you will get different search results. So be careful at the time when you're writing something, make sure that you are able to, in your mind, read those terms to figure out ahead of time if you are nudging it or making it go as a transactional query or informational query or navigational query. And based on this, you will be getting your search results. Examples of these type of queries is shown here. eBay laptop prices is navigational. In the exams, you will get really it's a question that comes invariably. I've seen it coming in the exam a lot of time. They would just give you a design and ask you to write a query, okay, or write the formulate a query in words to make it appear informational or make it appear navigational and so on. Okay, so keep that in mind. Let's look at predictive part, which is again influenced by the implied memory or the implied context that interprets or brings these type of boxes, um, so that you know what it means by definition and also by examples. There is something that is called people also ask. Where does it come from? You can see in theory the question are compared with previously searched questions by a global user, not just you, that correlates to the search terms. Now, search terms may not be in the question format, but it is giving a sense that you are trying to find information about that concept or about that idea. So it will automatically take it or assume that it could be a question query or question related. So it is the people also ask search box that will show up. And you will also notice that it is not always that you get to see people also ask box. And for the same reason as I explained to you, it would know initially if it is informational query, particularly in informational query, you will get the boxes. If it is navigational, you will probably not get these boxes. Okay. Um, so just so you know that this is where it starts to show up, and it's part of the predictive search, which means the search engine has used its own mind. Search related to is different from people also ask. This one says when global users have searched something in the same pattern of sequential search. I've worked on these algorithms. These are the most complicated ones, and something which not just one person can handle, but it's a team. And it is actually quite extensive and it requires a lot of testing. So when you are doing predictive search, this part search is related to is the most complex one. So how does it know that so many people have used the same terms to get the same idea conveyed to the search engine in certain period of time, or it is predictive enough to know that certain trends are more prevalent in certain in a certain time frame. So it is going to create that pattern. When global users have searched something in the same pattern of sequential search. Sequential search means that, remember I told you, whenever you are putting a search query in the first instance, it would bring you results that may require further refining. And then so the process continues. But if the same idea is going to be explored in a sequence of how the actual page is discovered, you would call that a sequence or a pattern typically adopted by most of the people searching for the same idea. So those algorithms are going to show something like this right here. Okay. I think this ends today's session pretty much. Now, this is predictive search is not important because it is not as controlled and it is not something that we can, we could say that it is typically, s- um, predictable. It is not predictable. It's totally, it's a permutation combination. So whenever we have suggested terms. Um, the thing about this is that as you keep typing more and more words to make it into a longer search phrase or a search term with more than one number of words, the drop down suggested terms keep changing. Okay. But I'm not a very big proponent of this type of information to be picked up. But you could see that in the pattern which is shown here, first of all, there is so many number of drop down combination of words. Before it used to be 6 or 8, and now they're increasing it slowly. But so far it is 3 and 3, 6, 7, so 10 of them, out of which the first 2 or 3 will be coming from your recent searches, or what is kept as a priority, or something that is priority for it to be shown as your recent searches with relationship to this word. And then what follows or rest of it is just thrown through the algorithmic process of what it thinks, using a bit of a semantics and the lemmatization structure and the popularity of two search terms put together. But hey, so far we just wrote internet, nothing else. So how can it be complete enough to give us the idea? Yet it is available to you. As soon as you put the second word, it starts to change everything in the and starts to use create the same pattern, except the combination of words will change, the meaning of which will keep changing also. So there is no controlled or definitive way of figuring out how this pattern is obtained. With the exception of the recent searches with 2 or 3 words, everything else that follows, it's very hard to pinpoint the the way in which, or the logic that is applied in bringing these. But these are ideas. You can look at the ideas and get a sense. Even if you put, let's say, instead of research, you put researcher, then the entire sequence of or the combination of these outcomes will change also. Okay, so these are more erratic and least controlled, and therefore can be assistive to a certain degree, but not a whole lot. It's autocomplete. Again, singular plurals, you use plurals as in certification. If you put an S, you would get a different combination. Okay. If you just leave it as a singular certification, even though the previous two words are the same, but you will get, a different search result. So this is singular and plural stuff, where when we get to it, it will be explained in more detail. We will then figure out in what type of searches a singular word versus a plural matters. Whereas generally, if you look at how Google explains it, it says that the search has the ability to accept both as singular or plurals and consider them to have the equal chance of occurring or bringing it in your search results. Whereas in certain cases, or using certain type of search operators, it would have a greatest impact, or even your query will fail just because you did not distinguish or used incorrectly some of the words that are in plural versus singular. So we will even get to that part, particularly in a query that uses an operator, for instance, in URL with a colon sign. Is very finicky about singulars and plurals unless it is an exact word that exists anywhere in any of those URLs that are floating around in your search tables. It's not going to bring the results, or it will just not bring any results at all. So it's very finicky. That's going a little bit ahead, not to confuse you, but to give you a heads up, or where certain statements which are very broadly placed and very explicitly mentioned in a lot of articles I see on the internet, it's not entirely true. So we'll come to those exceptions later. But for now, I think this is probably the last slide for today's lecture. And then when we meet next day after, we have classes. There is one day where, when is the Thanksgiving that we don't have a class? I think, yeah, please check your schedule
Friday, I
on
believe.
Friday. So there will be no class on Friday. And so there is just one more class I have to give day after before the weekends. And I'd like to start with basic search operators. Um, and I believe we are finished with context and intent. That was a part of your syllabus, which completes the technology part. Now we're going to start module 2, which is research methods, traditional research methods and online research. The first thing we will do is start with the Boolean operators. We also call it basic search. So day after tomorrow, hopefully we'll see all of you. I'll see all of you. Any questions? Any questions? Anything you want to ask? Feel free to do so. Uh,
Yeah, so the exam, I'm just curious, is it a multiple choice exam or uh, that and a combination of other questions?
It's multiple choice questions. It's not descriptive as in essays or nothing of that sort. You have to write. You don't even have to write search queries. Literally, it's going to be a choice of different queries. You'll have to select one.
Okay.
There is practice exam that you can always start to use, or if it's there already. You can explore that if you want. But what I would ask you is, even before you get to that, maybe it's not a good idea to go and look at those right now, because then there is a reason to it. Um, let's call it is a strategic reason, not for me, but for students also, but it is good for both the parties. Because when you get to the question, then you will have to ask things which may not actually connect with the course, only because it is not complete enough, or we are going to get there sooner or later. So unless it is complete, it is not a good idea. However, when we get done with one of the modules, right after that, you can try it. But because when you get to those exams or practice exams, they are a combination of questions that is coming from all four different modules. It might be uh, a little bit confusing for you. Besides that, listen, there is a chapter in the book which will help you, or something that you should read in any case before you even get to those practice questions. Let me show you what it is. It is going to talk about the exams only. Okay. So if you look at the table of content in the beginning, or on page, yeah, right over here, it is in Roman numbers. You could see that 1 through 6, these pages are telling you what are structure of CIRS training guide, CIRS qualifying exams. Under this qualifying exams, you will find a lot of your questions answered already.
Okay.
So if you
Alright.
read through it, then it will, at least give you a sense of what it is about.
Okay.
Okay. So anything else? Any questions? Eromi, how are you doing so far? Too much information, or not enough, or
No, I'm following
complex?
along. I'm managing so far.
You're managing, you're hanging in there, eh?
Yeah.
Okay. So John, how was it for you today?
Very good. Good pace, good information. Very good.
Thank you very much. And I hope to get to see you day after tomorrow.
Yep.
That's our other class. It's going to be important. Sure, it's going to be exciting also.
Good. Looking forward to
Great.
it.
Thank you so much for coming, everyone.
All right.
Joanne, thank you. And Miranda, everyone, have
Take
a
care,
good day
class.
tomorrow.
Take care, professor. Thank you. Very good.
Thank you. You too.
Yeah,
Take
take
care.
care.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.